In this episode, Steve Walling will be sharing first-hand Bruce Lee stories from Bob Wool and George Lee, and it's coming right up. All right, so we went through some of these, Anna, Robert. We talked a little bit about Samo. You want to move on to Bob Wool?
Yeah, that was interesting.
So how'd you meet Bob? What was that like? When did you first meet him?
Well, I met him, before. But 2003 was the story I want to tell. We were doing the 30th anniversary for Way of the Dragon. So it was actually 2002, but it aired in 2003.
Yeah.
It came part of that 30th anniversary box set. And so I went to his office to interview him, on-camera interview. Great interview, man. I mean, it was a long interview, and it was a good one. I had all the questions, and he was answering, and really good interview. So after the interview, he goes, "Hey, man," he goes, "me and Chuck, we still train every day," and I guess he was in his 60s at the time.
Wow.
"We can still do it, man. We can hang with the young guys." So, "Oh, really?" And he goes, "I could stand next to you, and I could kick you in the chest." And I go, "No way, I don't believe it." He goes, "Okay," he goes, "stand up." So we stood up side by side, and I'm like this thinking nothing's gonna happen. Next thing you know, boom, I mean, he plants one right in my chest, knocks me back. I go, "Oh my God." He goes, "I told you, man."
You didn't even see it coming.
Didn't even see it coming. He goes, "Stick your hand out." I go, "Okay." And he did some move on my arm. He goes, "I could have broke your arm," and I could feel where he could have broke it. I go, "Holy crap." I guess it was right after 9/11, so he was training the air marshals.
Oh, okay.
So he had a big United Airline trophy on his desk, appreciation for training them. So he was still really active.
Yeah, Bob was the real deal, man.
I asked him about the, of course, which everybody does, the the broken bottle scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody makes more of it than it is. Because here's what happened. He goes, the word was out, Bruce was going to kill me and this and that. He couldn't lose face in front of the stuntmen. He said, so what I did was I opened my gi in front of all the stuntmen, and I said, no padding, not wearing any padding. Told Bruce, he goes, because I love Bruce, man. He goes, told Bruce, hit me with your best shots. That was one of the shots I was telling you about, the Anna Capri, where it looked like he was hit by a car.
Yeah.
I guess he broke one of the stuntman's arm, that caught him.
That caught him, right? Yeah, when he flew back, they tried to stop the force, right?
Yeah, so Bruce, I guess he really did love Bruce to do that for him. But Bruce, being a prankster and really wanting to show his guys, face, he goes, wasn't satisfied with that, let's do it again. He said 8 times he blasted him.
No, did he really? They took that many takes on it?
Yeah, 8 times. He took him.
He took him.
Because, man, I used to fight Joe Louis and all these guys, man. I used to fight the heavyweights. I knew I could take it, man.
Yeah, well, Bob's a tough guy, man. Yeah. He's a big guy, too.
It had to hurt.
I met him a few times.
No padding.
Yeah, that must have hurt, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of his interesting stories.
Wow. Yeah, Bob was the real deal, man. He's been on the circuit for a long time.
These guys were tough guys. He told me that, I guess, remember when they went on Hong Kong TV, him and Chuck? Mm-hmm. Bruce told Chuck, look, man, these guys, they challenge me all the time. They're going to be challenging you now that you're associated with me. Just ignore it. And Bob Wall said, well, I told him, he didn't say nothing about me.
Yeah.
So I guess they went on to Enjoy Yourself Tonight. And he said, hey, man, he goes, anybody that wants to come down, but it has to be a death match, I'll take you on.
Who said that, Bob Wall?
Bob Wall. He goes, I thought there would be a line out the door to do it. He goes, no one showed up. So me and Chuck, you see photos of them doing the demonstration. Yeah, so they had to do a demonstration with each other, so that,
wow, look at that. And so no one showed up, even though he made that challenge.
He goes, I thought the line would be out the door. He goes, like, what did I do, but Nobody showed up.
Yeah, so they did it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to. I would love to see that footage, even if it's just Chuck
That
and
footage
Bob
would be
Wall.
great.
Like, where is that footage?
Yeah.
And where's the Bruce footage?
Because Bruce is doing some remember he's kicking the
Yeah.
shield, the focus mitt and stuff. Yeah, I'd love to see that. It's got to be out there. Yeah.
I don't understand it. I don't know. There's a few clear clips, right?
Right.
That you see him doing the sidekick, you see him doing the 1-inch punch,
Right.
but then all the rest of it's
Right.
disappeared.
Right.
It's like,
And like you say, like, why don't they release it?
let the fans see it. I mean, everyone wants to see it. I mean, they show you everything else on the show, so if they have the rest of the show, where is the part with Bruce, right? I mean,
Right.
it's probably a money thing. I mean, maybe the
It has
estate
to.
owns it, or Robert somebody has it, right? And they're just waiting for the
has to.
right price to come
Yeah.
along, and then maybe they'll
look,
release
there's
it.
all kinds of photos of 71 when he's kicking Bob Baker. Remember the Hong Kong TV stuff?
Yeah.
Bob Baker's kicking, and he's doing that like he's doing a knee kick to a guy. And that's got to be
Dozens
filmed.
of photos out there.
And it looks like there's some grainy stuff to where it was filmed.
Yeah, and they could not the record, and they're all in order,
Yeah.
right? So there has to be something filmed on that.
After 50 years, come on, release it.
It's like
We're all getting older. It's
I know.
Like, we want to see it. We're
maybe
fans.
for
We're
the
hardcore fans.
50th year of Ends of the Dragon.
And we say that every 25th year, 30th, there's going to be new footage. They're going to do something new.
And it's getting actually less.
It's the same old
It's just the
stuff.
same stuff.
Yeah.
They put like
Yeah.
2 seconds of something new
Yeah.
in it. It's like,
Yeah.
put something
And Warner
substantial.
Brothers owns it.
I
Can
know.
you imagine the archives they have?
It's-
Even do a photo gallery.
Yeah, something
Yeah,
more than what
right.
they do.
Right.
Yeah, well, let's see what they have in store,
Yeah.
Steve, for the 50th anniversary,
We'll
because
see.
it's coming
Hopefully
up,
we're
man.
around.
Exactly. Wow, so great story with
thank
Bob Wall, man. So who do we have next here? So we did Bob. You want to go to George Lee?
Yeah, we got to talk about George.
Man, George is a icon, man.
Yeah.
So George was one of Bruce's close friends,
Yeah,
right, throughout
they
the
were
years.
very, very close.
And he also was the one who made the tombstone, right?
That's
You
right.
want to pull that out real quick?
Yeah.
Hey, let's grab that real quick.
All right.
So George Lee, actually at the time, right, back in the 60s, was it?
Yep.
Right? Wow, this has, oh my God. So Bruce had the first one, right? And
course.
Bruce came up with the whole design
Right.
and the whole saying,
Right.
right, in memory of a once
Right.
fluid man, crammed and distorted by the
Right.
classical
Right.
mess, right? So what did George tell you about this? How did this come about?
Well, Bruce would always send them drawings. Hey, can you make? Well, I like to start how everything
Yeah.
began actually, and it'll lead to that. George was into dancing, right? And so he never knew, never heard of Bruce Lee, but here this young kid was teaching cha-cha.
Mm-hmm.
So George wanted to go in Oakland. He wanted to go learn cha-cha. He didn't know Bruce could do martial arts. So he took the lessons and stuff. And after the class one day, he said, "I saw Bruce. He's doing these kung fu." Now George had been studying kung fu in China.
Right.
He was 20 years older than Bruce, so he had already been a martial artist.
Mm-hmm.
He's seen Bruce do this stuff. He goes, "I never seen anything like that. What this guy was doing." So I went up to him and I said, "Hey, what is that you're doing?" "Oh, it's kind of a modified version of Wing Chun, And he goes, "Why?" He goes, "I would love to learn that. Can you teach me?" And Bruce says, "Yeah, okay, yeah, I could teach you." So George, being a master maker, he was a welder by trade.
Yeah,
He worked
yeah.
on the shipyard. And everything had to be perfect with him. It couldn't be half-assed. So one time he saw Bruce was keeping all of his notes and papers and stuff in a shoebox. So George built him this beautiful metal filing system, cabinet, and this and that. And Bruce handed it to me, my seafood, Handed it to him. Bruce was like, instead of thinking, "Wow, what a great filing," whatever, the wheel started turning. "Hey man, can you make me a kicking shield? Can you make me a grip machine?"
You remember the forearm grip machine?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Can you? So Bruce was a great artist.
Artist, yeah.
So Bruce would draw stuff, and George, can you make me this? And then George would kind of redo it, like for specs, like 2 inches this way, 3 inches this way. And so Bruce came up with the 3 signs and this. And he said, "Hey, man, on 20th Century Fox stationery, if you remember, he was doing Green Hornet."
Yeah, yeah.
And George said, "Yeah, absolutely, And so he made him. He goes that. He goes, "I want to put that in my school in LA. I want that to be the first thing people see when they walk in the door. Is that
Was this saying?
If you stick to the classical mess, you're a dead man.
You're a dead man. Yeah.
You gotta adapt.
Yeah, work outside of the box, right, man?
Right. So George made him that. Bruce, of course, flipped, and then he made it. He goes, "This is the signs that describe my style and stuff." of course, George, everything's, and you see the letters, you know, George, everything you do is first class. You won't send it unless it's first class. And then he made him start making the kicking shields. And of course, Herb Jackson in LA was making Bruce training stuff too.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, and then I remember George saying, yeah, Bruce it didn't absorb the shock of kicking shield, so he sent it back to him. Well, Bruce would say, hey, he would send, like, it's gonna be my birthday. I'm gonna send you a ticket to come down, but don't tell any of the other students.
Right.
Because that's how much he loved George. He was
Wow,
real close to
real
George.
close to George.
George said, I guess when Bruce was having appearances, you know, like, and you know, to promote the Green Hornet and stuff, the signings and stuff, that I guess people were always mobbing him all the time. So Bruce said, I need something to kind of keep him away. So George made him some steel toe like sneakers. So Bruce said when someone would, you know, they would try to mob me, he goes, I just give him a little kick and they would stay away.
Because he had the steel toe in, in his shoe.
Yeah.
So then how did you get George to make you one of these?
He wasn't making it many of those, you know, and that might be the last one.
Yeah, I think it may be, because there's only, I've only seen one other person, Richard Torres, when I went over his house,
but
that had one that George made him, and now you're showing me one that he made for you.
So one of my top 3 items, first is the tombstone. This was made by George Lee. Actually, Bruce Lee read this book called Profitable Showmanship here. And because obviously he wanted to know how to run a school. And inside there, he talks about the Harris Super Service Company in Van Nuys, California has a tombstone on the lawn in front of the station. The epitaph reads, in memory of a good motor ruined by inferior oil and gas.
Wow, he was inspired by this book.
So on that he put, in memory of a once fluid man crammed and distorted by the classical mess. So,
and that was him kind of putting down traditional styles, right, as he was coming with his...
saying that this martial artist, he got killed because he stayed with the classical mess instead of just allowing himself to be a human being. So this is one of my favorites, of course.
Wow.
And George Lee made this for me. In fact, he actually wrote some letters here talking about he certified that the classical mess he made for me, and he signed it over here, George Lee.
Now this is the same one that he made for Bruce, right, back in the early days?
Correct.
And then you asked him when you met him if he could make you one, and he custom made this one for you?
I did a seminar. In fact, I did a seminar before the Nucleus did.
Wow.
And which they actually duplicated what I did. Back in '94, I think it was around, and George Lee was there.
That's a
and when
splitting
George met
image
me,
of the one.
he told me, I'm going to make that for you.
That's fantastic.
So that's number 1.
Yeah.
And these have some substance, man.
Oh, yeah,
These are,
yeah.
This is the
He
real
didn't
deal.
do anything halfway.
No.
Everything was like,
Wow.
That's why Bruce loved, you know, him making that stuff, the grit machine, yeah. So I got that because George, you know, really giving person. We got real close. You know, he was like an uncle, ended up being like an uncle, and yeah, just went there one day and there it was, and yeah, real giving guy. I think that was the last one.
Wow, yeah. Well, George Lee was one of the 4 Musketeers, right?
Yeah.
Him, Alan Joe, James Lee, and Bruce, right? They used to call them the 4 Musketeers.
Now they're all gone.
I know, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, let me put this back.
Oh,
This is so heavy. I don't want it to break you. That is just amazing, amazing, amazing. Wow.
Now George, whenever we would leave, he would always stand at the door and give us the kung fu salute.
Oh, did he?
Every time
Very
we would
respectful.
leave. Very respectful. Really respectful. And so when we leave, so we do it back. And stuff. And so when he was getting ready to pass, his wife called and said, "Hey, don't know how much longer he's got. You guys might want to come down here and see what's going on." So we drove up there. And I'm glad I did because I was like, "Man, maybe next week." And it's like, "No, we got to go now." So we went up, and I remember we walked in the room. I didn't even recognize him, but we walked in the room, and
was he still at home at this time?
No, he was in the hospital, but he was so medicated because they were easing his pain. You know, he was morphine and all that. And we walked in, and his wife said, "Hey, George," he's not supposed to be coherent. "Hey, George, Dave and Steve are here," and he moved. It's like, "Oh wow," and we're like, "George, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay." We were talking to him and stuff, but he was out of it. And this is something I'll never forget. So we're getting ready to leave. "All right, George, you hang in there, man. We're gonna see you again, and this and this and that." And he mustered up the energy to do the kung fu salute under the sheet.
No way.
He shouldn't have been able to move.
And he did the kung fu salute to you guys.
That's the power and strength this guy had. Yeah.
Wow, that's a touching story, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Wow. Yeah, you seem like you
kind
really
of guy
got.
he was, and then
He lived in LA, right?
He lived in Castro Valley.
Okay, Castro Valley.
Just before Oakland and all that. And we'd take the 5 up, and he was always the first stop. And every time we went up there, it was breakfast with George and Mary.
Look at that.
Oh yeah, and gosh, man, the memories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's amazing when you think of all the friends Bruce had.
Yeah.
They were such great people and humble people
Yeah.
and sincere and truthful and honest, right? And people say, you become like the people you hang out around, right? And Bruce always surrounded himself, it seems like, with the best people.
He knew, because they stayed loyal to him to the end.
Because the ones I met were always the nicest people.
Yeah,
that
and they
knew
were
Bruce.
older than him.
Yeah.
You'd think he was the old one. One story, we went to visit George, and I remember he came to meet us at the front door. Hey, George, how you doing? Went to give him a hug, and he threw a kick up to my face. 90-something years old. And he goes, I go, wow, George, it's amazing. He goes, yeah. He goes, my knee's been bothering me. And I go, wow. I go, when I'm your age, I hope I can get out of bed, let alone throw a kick at somebody's face. Yeah, because he's still kept in good shape. Him and his, and I told him that too. I go, George, what's the secret to longevity? And he goes, secret is you don't sit still. People retire and they sit in their chair and just wait to wither away.
Yeah.
He goes, if I'm playing tennis, we're going to dancing. We're not dancing, we're taking a cruise. Not doing that, I'm working in the garden. Always moving.
Stay active, stay active. I agree with that, man. Yeah,
me too.
Yeah, you got to keep your mind and your body nimble, man. You have to keep moving.
Right.
Both, mind and body.
Yeah, so he such a great guy, man.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, any other first-hand stories that he shared with you about Bruce and his speed or his power, or that he's actually witnessed, or?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Because you reminded me. He said in class, he said he'd walk into class and Bruce would go, George! And George would have to go, hey! For reaction. You had to react. As soon as Bruce yelled your name, you had to react. That taught you reaction time.
Reaction time.
And one time George said, Bruce stood in front of him, said, okay, George, I want you to blink your eye. Okay. And George said, I blinked my eye and Bruce was standing behind me.
That's how fast he was.
Unbelievable.
So the minute he blinked, Bruce was already behind him.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
That's because Bruce was working 24/7, man, and being the best you can be, right?
That's
all the time. And he used every situation, right? Reaction time, power, speed, even real life situations. It was always, how can I relate this to get him better, right?
Said doing the dummy, it was like hearing a machine gun. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you've had Wing Chun, so
yeah. I mean, it is like hearing a machine gun. I can imagine when Bruce is doing it.
Can you imagine that?
Oh my God. Crazy.
Yeah. So those are the stories that real. There's so many more, but those are my top. With George, Now,
I know you have starred here. We said, what's his name again?
Joe Terranova.
Yeah. So tell the people who Joe Terranova is, because I didn't really know who that was until you explained it to me. But he's pretty connected to Bruce and J.C. Byrne.
He got real close with Bruce.
Stay tuned for part 4, where Steve Walling continues to share first-hand Bruce Lee stories from Joe Terranova and Wu Nan, coming soon.